The heat of the midday sun seemed to match the searing tension in the small house where Jane lived with her mother. The walls, once filled with laughter and warmth, now stood cold and silent. Her father had died 2 years ago, and with his death, the heart of the household had also perished. Her mother, once soft-spoken and full of grace, had transformed into someone bitter, sharp-tongued, and cruel. Jane's had been just 15 when her father passed away, and it wasn't long before the emotional walls between her and her mother began to rise. Her father had been the glue that held their small family together. He had always been the one to protect Jane, to shield her from the worst of her mother's temper. But now that he was gone, there was no one to stop her mother from unleashing her anger, disappointment, and resentment. The torment started slowly, as Jane's mother struggled with grief. At first, it was the harsh words and the silent treatment. Jane could feel the weight of her mother's gaze on her, as if she were a reminder of everything that had gone wrong in her life. Then came the accusations. Jane was too quiet, too slow, too careless, too unworthy. Her mother began to blame her for everything that had gone wrong. She wasn't the perfect daughter her mother wanted. She wasn't the child who could fill the emptiness left by her father's death. "Look at you, just like your father, useless," her mother would hiss at her, the venom in her voice piercing like a sharp knife. Jane's had learned to shrink into herself, to disappear into the background. Her mother's eyes, cold and accusing, never let her forget that she was a constant disappointment. It wasn't just the words, it was the constant presence of judgment in every room, in every space. Even when Jane managed to do something right, it was never enough. Her mother's praise was as rare as the first rain after a long drought, and when it did come, it was quickly drowned out by the criticisms that followed. At first, Jane tried to fight back, to show her mother that she wasn't the cause of the family's problems. But her mother's anger would rise, often spilling over in a flurry of verbal lashes, sometimes even physical ones. The first time it happened, it had been a slap across her face, sharp and unexpected. The sting still lingered long after the physical pain had subsided. Her mother had stared at her afterward, her eyes hard and unforgiving. "Maybe that will teach you to listen, to do things right for once," her mother had spat. The scars from that night were not just on her skin, but deep within her heart. Jane had learned to stay silent, to tiptoe around her mother's moods, always careful not to provoke the storm. Every day felt like walking on a tightrope, every action, every word measured, lest it trigger another explosion of rage. The whispers of shame she had been fed over time took root inside her, poisoning her self-worth. School, once a sanctuary, became a place of isolation. Jane was no longer the bright, bubbly girl she used to be. She stopped talking to her friends, and they noticed. They saw the bruises on her wrists, the dark circles under her eyes, the way she flinched at loud noises. But every time one of them asked if she was okay, Jane would just nod, a weak smile on her lips, pretending everything was fine. She didn't want to burden anyone with the truth. She didn't even know how to explain the darkness that had consumed her life. At night, when the house grew quiet and the world outside faded into stillness, Jane would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts racing. She thought about the woman her mother had become, a woman who had no love left for her daughter, no care for anything except her own grief. Jane often wondered if she had done something wrong, if she had failed her mother somehow. What if she could have saved her father? What if she had been better, more perfect, more like the daughter her mother wanted? The internal dialogue was a constant loop in her mind, the cruel thoughts always drowning out any sense of hope. Every now and then, Jane would have brief flashes of memories from a time when things had been different, when her father had been alive, when laughter had filled the house. Those memories seemed so far away now, like they belonged to someone else, to another life. But one thing Jane knew for certain was that her mother's anger was not her fault. It wasn't her fault that her father was gone. It wasn't her fault that the weight of grief had broken her mother. Still, it felt like her fault, because it was she who was left behind to carry the brunt of her mother's suffering. The words had become a constant echo in her mind, I'll never be good enough. It was a mantra, an ugly truth that had settled deep in her soul. She felt as though she was suffocating in the house that was supposed to be her home, in the life that was supposed to be hers to live. It was one particularly harsh evening, after yet another cruel outburst, that Jane made her decision. She couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't stay, trapped in this cycle of pain and torment. She had to get out, get away from her mother, away from the house, away from the silence and the torment. She couldn't heal in this environment. She couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when it was slowly destroying her. With trembling hands, she packed a small bag, clutching her father's old jacket for comfort. She glanced at the door one last time, then stepped outside into the night. The streets of her hometown felt foreign to her now. It was as if she had already begun to leave the life she had known, leaving behind not just her mother's cruelty, but the girl she used to be. She didn't know where she would go. She didn't know what would happen next. But one thing was certain, she was leaving this torment behind, no matter the cost. It was a late afternoon when Jane sat on the worn bench in front of the local bakery, staring out at the street. Their hometown had an old-world charm with its narrow, dusty roads and quaint houses, but to Iphioma, it felt like a prison. The weight of the small, run-down village pressed against her chest, the familiar streets and faces a constant reminder of the life she wanted to escape. The air was thick with the scent of earth, and the evening sun cast long shadows over the town, but Jane barely noticed. Her thoughts were consumed by what had happened just a few hours earlier. That morning, her mother had unleashed another tirade, this time about Jane's failure to clean the kitchen properly. She had stood there, silent and trembling, waiting for the verbal assault to subside, but it never did. The words just kept coming, harsher and more cutting with each sentence. The accusations became increasingly absurd, as though her mother was looking for any reason to lash out. "I never should have had you," her mother had spat, her voice dripping with venom. "If I had known what you would become, I would have never brought you into this world." The sting of those words hit Jane like a physical blow. She had learned long ago to brace herself for the verbal assaults, but that particular line, a line that threatened her very existence, stayed with her for hours. It was like a weight pressing on her chest, suffocating her. She needed to escape, to find some air, but she didn't know where to go, or how to even start. As Jane sat there, she heard the familiar sound of footsteps approaching. Her best friend, Anna's, appeared from around the corner, her bright smile a welcome contrast to the gloom that hung around Iphioma. Anna was a year older than Jane, and the two had been inseparable since primary school. Anna had always been the more outgoing one, the one who had a way of making Jane laugh, even when it felt like there was nothing to smile about. Anna noticed the sadness in Jane's eyes immediately. She had known something was wrong when Jane had not shown up for their usual study session at the park. Anna sat down beside her, her expression softening with concern. "What happened, Jane?" Anna asked gently, her voice quiet enough to be heard over the sounds of the street. Jane hesitated, glancing at Anna, her heart heavy with the truth she had been hiding. But something about the concern in her friend's eyes made her feel safe enough to speak. The floodgates opened, and the words spilled out in a rush, telling Anna everything: the endless abuse, the verbal beatings, the suffocating atmosphere at home. She told her about the emotional torment, the way her mother would accuse her of ruining their lives, of being a burden. As Jane spoke, the tears came, hot and heavy, the years of holding it all inside finally breaking free. Anna listened without interruption, her face a mask of concern, but there was something else in her eyes, something that looked almost like determination. When Iphioma finished, she wiped her face with the back of her sleeve, trying to gather herself. "You can't stay there," Anna said firmly, her voice calm but resolute. "You're not going to heal if you stay trapped in that place. You have to get out, Jane. You have to leave." Jane looked at her in confusion. "Where would I go? I don't have money. I don't even have a plan." Anna reached into her bag and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. She handed it to Jane. I know a guy, Anna said, her voice low. He's been helping people get out of situations like yours. He's a few years older than us, a good guy. He's in Lagos, and he's got connections. If you trust him, he could help you get there. Jane stared at the piece of paper in her hand. It was an address, with a phone number scribbled underneath. She could feel her heart beating faster, a mix of fear and excitement building up inside her. This was the chance she had been waiting for, but at the same time, it terrified her. The idea of running away to a place she had only ever dreamed about felt surreal. Lagos, Jane whispered, her voice barely audible. That's so far. How will I even get there? Anna took a deep breath, her gaze unwavering. I know it seems impossible, but you can do it. I'll help you get the money. I'll cover the bus fare, and I'll make sure you get to the bus station. You'll be safe in Lagos. You'll be far away from all this, and you can start over. Jane swallowed, the weight of her situation pressing down on her. She had never thought this could be possible. She had always been too scared to make such a drastic move. But as she looked at Anna, the fear seemed to lessen. Anna believed in her, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough to believe in herself. Are you sure about this? Jane asked, her voice shaky. What if something goes wrong? What if my mother finds out? She'll never forgive me. Anna placed a reassuring hand on Jane's. Your mother is not your responsibility anymore. You have to think about yourself, about your future. You can't let her hold you back. You deserve to live a life where you're safe and happy. And if you stay, you'll just keep suffering. Jane nodded slowly, the decision settling into her bones. This was her chance to leave the life she had known. The one she had been trapped in for so long. And though the uncertainty of the future loomed over her like a shadow, for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. I'll do it, she said quietly, her voice steady with newfound resolve. I'll go. Anna smiled, her eyes sparkling with pride. I'll help you every step of the way. We'll make sure you get out of here, Jane. You'll be okay. The two friends sat there for a while longer, discussing the details. Anna promised to help Jane sell a few of her old clothes to raise enough money for the bus ticket. They would leave in the dead of night, when her mother was asleep, so there would be no chance of being caught. Jane would board the bus to Lagos, alone but not truly alone, for Anna's support would stay with her every step of the way. As Jane stood up to leave, a sense of determination replaced the overwhelming fear. It was time. This was the moment she would take control of her life, even if it meant leaving everything she had ever known behind. Thanks for watching and staying with me till now. Please like, share, subscribe and turn on the notifications bell not to miss a moment from us.